Hey guys, so I know it's been a while. I'm sorry, but school has been crazy, so this hasn't been exactly at the top of my priority list. So today, we're gonna do a couple things. We're gonna go over some mirroring, we're gonna go over shells, which are pretty cool, and we're also gonna use the hole wizard, which has a really funny name. At least I think it does, but um it's really useful. Um and I can't remember if I've talked about this before or not, but we're also going to go over section views real quick again. So I'm going to be going off of this drawing here. Wow, that is very zoomed out. So this is why I brought up this section view, because whenever you see these little cross hatches and you see section AA, it's, hey, this has been cut in some way so you can see inside of it. So we find AA here. Then this cut, we're basically taking a knife and running it through our entire part. So kind of where the center line is. We're just going straight through there. And then we're looking at this half of our part from this direction. I hope that makes sense. It just, at least in this example, it really helps us to see this little cutout here. And then it also really solidifies that this is all the same width, even though we can see over here with this hidden line that it's all the same width. Yeah, so this part's a little weird. You have to really pay attention to where your center marks are, because otherwise you're gonna end up with kind of a wonky shape, and I'll try to explain that as I go along. But first, I'm just going to start a new sketch on the front plane, and I'm gonna draw this weird U-type shape. I'm going to ignore these little flanges. I'm going to ignore this cutout, and then I'm also going to ignore that the inside's hollow. So we're just going to extrude this U-type shape as a solid. So I'm gonna move this drawing back to my other screen. And so I said we're gonna start on our front plane. So I'll select front plane, go to sketch. And let's see, trying to figure out where I want my origin to go. It's always kind of interesting. So for this one, you can do a lot of things. If we zoom in over here, we could do the origin as this point, as a corner. It's really wherever you want it to be. I think I'm gonna go ahead and put it on this corner just because I can. Why not? It'll make things later on a bit easier. So I'm gonna start there. So that was weird. So I'll grab my line tool. I will start in this corner. I'll come down some distance. I'm gonna hover over that point to get an arc. Then I'll come up, looking for those blue lines to make my life a bit easier. And then we go straight across, down a little bit. We have another little arc here. Then we go up and over. Okay, so now we have our basic shape here. So we just need to add relations and dimensions. So one thing, even though you see those blue lines, wait, is it not gonna let me do it, really? It understands for once? Wow, so usually I'm able to move this other line up and down because SolidWorks doesn't always understand that even though you have these blue, that when you sketch the line and there's the blue line, it doesn't always understand that those are actually like not coincident, in line with each other. So that's kind of cool, actually. Wow, it never does that for me. I'm impressed. Good work, SolidWorks. Okay, anyway, back to dimensions. So I'll pull this over again. Zoom in. So we know that this distance is 1.35, and then this TYP tells us typical, so we know that this side is also 1.35. We know that, sorry, I'm losing my voice, goodness, we know that this arc here has a radius of 2.25, and then this is where it gets a little weird. So the center point of our big arc and the top of our little arc are at the same point. And then that point is 1.5 from the top. So yeah, that's where it gets a little funky. Because we don't actually know the radius of this arc, because it's not going to be the 1.5, because the 1.5 is from here to here, whereas the center point of our arc is here. And if we knew this distance, then we would be able to figure out what the radius is, but we don't know that distance. So we just have to see and understand that the center point of our big arc is the same as the top of our bottom, I don't know, of our little baby arc here. So move this back over once again, because I can never seem to remember dimensions. So I'm gonna put 1.35. Oh, one thing I forgot to say is that our units were specified in IPS. So I am in IPS. You always want to check that before you do anything. So I personally really like to keep sketches as clean as possible. So I am going to hold Control, select both of these lines, and then make them equal. And so for some reason, I need to go back into this part because this distance has changed. I only have to change one dimension. I don't have to change both of them. So that's one less thing I have to remember to do if I happen to need to change this part. So now, what did I say? Right, we have our big arc. It's a radius of 2.25. And we know from the center point to our top line is 1.5. And then here's the fun part. We have find at the tip of our arc. Sometimes SolidWorks makes it hard to find, but just kind of run your mouse along until you get this point. And then we'll hold Control, hold our center point, and make them coincident. And now see, we're fully defined. And if we look back at our drawing, it makes sense with where our center marks are and center lines are. So we have center mark here. Let's zoom in here. We have center mark here and center mark kind of in the middle there. So that looks good. We're ready to extrude this thing. So the next question is, how far do we extrude this thing? So I said we're going to ignore these flanges for now. So we want to go from here to here. So we don't have that dimension up here. So we're going to head on over to our right side view. And we can see that this dimension is A. Now, of course, I don't have an A value. So I'm just going to kind of make one up. I try to make it somewhat reasonable with what we actually have here. I'll do the same thing with B. So if this is 1.25, I might say that B is 1.5. That looks pretty close, right? So we'll do 1.5 for B, and then 3. I'm really bad at judging distances. Never tell me like, oh, it's 5 feet away. I have no idea what that means. I don't know. My driver's ed instructor is always like, oh, so you're gonna turn in 500 feet. Like, sure. Yeah, can you just say like the next stoplight? Because I don't know what that means. This is also a weird thing I do. I like to always have my extrusions going like that way. So I always hit the arrow. You don't have to do that. I honestly have no idea why I do it. I think it's just an aesthetic thing. So ignore me half the time. So we can kind of look here. 4 seems reasonable, so we'll go with 4. So now we just have, it kind of looks like a magnet. So we have this weird magnet. And so now I'm going to go ahead and shell my magnet. That sounds really weird. But shelling is kind of just hollowing something out. It's probably easier to explain if I just click on it. So I'll click on my shell feature, and then I select or set, set a distance of like the thickness I want to be left after I shell this. And so in our case, I don't know why everything is so tiny. In our case, this is going to be 0.325, and that's applied everywhere. So I'm gonna take this 0.32, oh, I gotta click on it. 0.325, oh my gosh, I broke it. Redo 0.325, there we go, we did it. And then, so you select the faces that you want to go away. So this face and this face. I like to show the preview too, so you can see what you're doing. And then this face. And this way. So basically, because we want kind of wherever you don't want material to be is where you'll select. So what's a good example of this? So if I don't select this, then my shell will just do everything around that. It leaves this intact. If I do select it, but then not these, honestly, I don't even know what this is gonna look like. It's gonna be weird. I don't like that. It doesn't get rid of this face. So whatever faces you want to get rid of is what you're going to select. So there we go. We have a nice now hollow magnet. Okay, so next we can either do our flanges, or we could do this little cutout here. Really doesn't matter. I'm gonna go ahead and start with the flanges. They're all the same, so that's helpful for us. So there's 2 ways to mirror things, kind of depending on what you do. So I will be doing a sketch mirror and a feature mirror just to show you how those work. And then we'll also go over the whole wizard and what all of this hullabaloo means. Wow, I haven't used that word in a long time. It should be used more. But I'm just going to draw my flange, and so I just need something that is B from the edge to the center of my hole, and that is 1.35 wide. So that's fairly simple. So there's a few things I can do. I can select this top face, or because of where I put my origin, I can select the top. I'm gonna go ahead and just select the top plane just because I can. I'm gonna do a Control-8. So I'm looking right down at this thing. And so now I'm gonna use my line. And we're gonna do a little, there we go. We're gonna do a little loopity loop here. There it is. Okay. And then I think I said I was gonna make B 1.5. Ooh, that was pretty cool. Alrighty. And wow, look, it's already fully defined because I was able to use my previous extrusion, these little vertices here, as endpoints. And so because this was a previous extrusion, I don't need to dimension this width because based off of this, SolidWorks knows what it is. So now if I want to do a mirror in Sketch, so first I need a center line. So I can hit my down arrow next to line and hit center line. Now let's say I just accidentally hit line and come over here and hit for construction, and that will make it a center line. So I'm going to find the center of this area here and just gonna drag a line straight down. I don't care where it goes because I'm just using this as a construction line. It doesn't matter. Then I will hit mirror entities. My first blue box is entities to mirror. So I'm just gonna highlight my lovely box, not box, weird arc flange thing. And then mirror about is this center line I just made. And then typically you will want to have copy selected. Otherwise it just does weird things. I've never not had to use copy. So yeah, so I'm gonna hit my green check and boom, I already have these two flanges done. And then you could opt to mirror these onto this side in the sketch as well, but I'm actually going to do those in feature mode. Use the mirror feature instead of the sketch mirror. So now I need to extrude these some distance. So we're going to do extrude, and it's definitely the wrong way, so we'll reverse it. And then these are also 0.325. And that's not just because of this. Wow, that is really tiny. That's not just because of this TYP over here. It actually says it over here as well. So hit OK. Now I have those flanges. So now we're going to move on to the hole wizard. So I'll click hole wizard. Then I have all these options. So I know it's a little scary, but don't worry. It's not as difficult as you might think. I'm trying to be able to show both at the same time. So you gotta give me a minute here. Okay, so First of all, this 4 times just means that this hole is applied 4 times. CSK is going to be countersink. So if we look, of course, it's not going to highlight because I'm not in SolidWorks technically, but CSK is going to be countersink. And so when you move your mouse over these different types, it'll tell you countersink, counterbore, so on and so forth. The two that at least my students use are countersink and counterbore. Counterbore, I suddenly cannot remember the abbreviation for counterbore. Wow, yeah, I don't remember. I think it might be C-bore. I think it's C-bore. I'm 99.9% sure it's C-bore. Yes, it is absolutely C-bore. Okay, yes, we're good. I know what I'm doing, I promise. So CSK is countersink. And then these are telling us what type of hole we need. So it's a 3/8 flathead machine screw. And then this gets into a little more specifics. We'll come back to it in a second. So back in SolidWorks. So this tells me countersink. So I'll click that. And it's flathead machine screw 100. Now, SolidWorks does not have flathead machine screw. It just has flathead screw. So that's something to kind of be aware of. If you can't find it, just pick the thing that's closest to it. You want the numbers to be the same at the very least. So we want flathead screw 100. Then we'll scroll down and our size was 3/8. So then we'll find our 3/8. So bring this back up again. Just going in the order of SolidWorks, we have the countersink, we have flathead machine screw, and then we have our size. Now these down here have to do with the fit. Typically it's just going to be this normal fit. We can double check that with this show custom sizing. So our circle with the line through it is, you should know by now, is the diameter symbol. This through all is our in condition here. And then this is telling us the angle, because like a countersunk hole, you can kind of see up here, it's angle and then straight down. So this is telling us the angle between these little diagonal lines here. So that's this 100 degrees, and then this diameter is this outside diameter here. Oh, sorry, this diameter is this inside diameter. So it's typically going to be normal, but we can hit show custom sizing. Ooh, I broke it. There we go. But we have that 0.397, 0.762, 100 degrees. So that's exactly what our drawing tells us. So now we can come up here to positions. We don't want to hit OK yet, because right now we've just said, okay, this is what we want. But now we have to go to positions, and we'll select a face or a surface or a plane, and then we're just going to kind of click somewhere. I'm going to go ahead and do both since I can. And then once I have those there, then I will hit my green check. Now these are not defined in any way. We just put these holes here. Now we need to tell them where they actually need to go. So we are going to hit the down arrow next to our hole wizard feature, and then our undefined sketch, the one under defined sketch, the one with our little dash before it. It should usually always be this first one. Don't mess with the second one. We are going to right click, edit sketch. And so now we have just the center points of those lovely holes we created. So I'm going to Control 8. And then I'm just going to move these out of the way real quick because this is a pretty easy way to do it, at least in my opinion. Just use that lovely center line again. And we're going to draw a center line straight across. And then we're going to do the same thing over here, straight across from the endpoints of our arc. And then I'm just going to drag my point to the midpoint of my center line. So that way, our hole is always going to be right in the middle of our flange. And it's going to share a center point with our arc. Which, if you're not sure how I know that, is you might not think it's explicitly stated, but this B really tells us that. And since we just have the one center mark, that's also a pretty good indication. And we also don't have anything telling us otherwise. Sometimes drawings are not going to give you every single tiny detail, and it's just kind of what it looks like, or just what makes the most sense. Because we don't want our hole to be in here, then what's the point of having the rest of this flange here? So I'm going to exit my sketch, and now that sketch is defined, my holes are in the right spot. Beautiful. But now I need them on the other side. So we're going to utilize our lovely mirror feature. But before I mirror anything, I always like to see where my planes are. Because you want to, when you use the feature mirror, you want to use a plane to mirror about. So my front plane is here, that won't work. My top plane is there, that won't work. My right plane is there, so that won't work either. So I have to make a new plane. So I'll use reference geometry plane. And then I want this right in the middle of my strange magnet. So I can just select both sides of my weird magnet, and it's going to put that plane right in the center. I could have also used this face in a distance, or the front plane in a distance. There's a lot of ways to do it. I think this way is the easiest and the fastest, frankly. So I'll go ahead and hit OK. So now I have a plane right in the middle. And now I will go up and hit mirror. So our first option is the mirror face plane. So I'll go to my drop-down tree, come down and hit plane 1. And then features to mirror, I want boss extrude 2, which was our 2 flanges. And then I also want my hole wizard. And then we're not mirroring any faces, we're not mirroring any bodies, so we don't need to worry about that. And then we'll go ahead and hit OK. And now I have 4 identical flanges. So I'm going to go ahead and just hide plane 1 just because I don't want to see it. So we have one more thing to do. I lied, we have 2 more things to do. So first we're going to add in this little cut here. So we know that this cut is right in the middle. We know it's 1.25 wide, and we know it is 0.65 in height. So let's go ahead and do that. So you can't sketch on a curved surface, which we don't need to in our case, but let's say the cut was some reason down here, we would have to use a plane that either already exists or that we created, because you cannot sketch on a curved surface. But this is not a curved surface, so I will select this face, go up and hit sketch. Do a nice Control-8, zoom in a little bit, and then because this is right in the middle, I'm going to go ahead and use my lovely center line again, just down some random distance. I'm going to make a box, or a rectangle, pardon me. I know that this box is 0.65 tall and 1.25 wide. Now, what's missing? What do I need to do? It still moves this way. So even though I have the center line here, it is not, SolidWorks doesn't know that I want this box to be centered about this line. So there's a few things I can do. So I can either, while holding Control, select my two vertical lines and my center line, and I can hit Symmetric. That does the trick. Or if I don't want to do that, I could find the center line. It's usually easier, the center point, pardon me, the center point of my top line, and select this point of my center line and make those coincident. That works as well. If your box is already kind of on top of it, sometimes that's harder to find. You saw that I had to move my box over here. So I like the symmetric. I'm not going to change it back because it's the same result. So now that I have that box drawn, I'm going to go Features, Extruded Cut, and then instead of telling it a distance, because again, I like to think that if I have to go and change this part in some way, how can I minimize the amount of things I need to change? So I'm going to say up to surface, and I want this surface here. So it's going to cut until every part of that cut reaches this surface. So I'll hit OK. Beautiful. Now we have that cut out. So you might think you're done, but pay close attention because we actually have little rounded edges here. Rounded edges. So that's a fillet. It is not fillet, it is fillet. And we know that this fillet has a radius of 0.325. So our last thing, you're going to go up, hit fillet. We want just this normal first fillet. And then I want a symmetric fillet. You can do an asymmetric, but 9 times out of 10, you don't want to do that. We'll make it 0.325. Come up here, and then I will select maybe this edge, this edge. Come on, work with me. Oh my goodness. Sometimes selecting things is the hardest thing to do. There we go. So I have those rounded edges, and now this part is done. Whoa, you did it. We did it. Go team. Yeah, that's all I have today.